Every 18 years, we experience a shift of energy that brings in bold innovation and community awakening and an opportunity for letting go of old identities that don't work for us anymore and don't serve anymore. Ego death and also a rebirth. So this is a time that challenges us to let go of performative identities and lead more from our purpose and our dharma rather than from pride or control or trying to be something. There's an opportunity to realign with what is going to be of greatest service to the collective and let go of the places where we are seeking approval, trying to control things. This is the shift of Rahu and Ketu into the signs of Aquarius and Leo, respectively. And in today's episode, I'm going to talk all about this big shift going on from May 2025 until November 2026. And I made a free guide for you to follow along with this episode with much more detail in the free guide. It's actually, you can pay what you want. If you want to pay for it, you can, but it's available for free. It's at quietmindastrology.com/karma2025. So that's karma 2025. The link is in the show notes as well. So you'll definitely want to get this guide. The last one I offered like this was the Jupiter guide, and that's been super popular. And that is a good complement to this one because that one just talks about Jupiter. This one is going to talk about Rahu, Ketu, and Saturn. In today's episode, I'll talk about all these things as well. So you want to get that free guide at quietmindastrology.com/karma2025 and see what it says for your unique rising and moon sign in Vedic astrology. So I have interpretations for each sign there in depth and detail of what to do over the next 2 years. But in today's episode, I'm just going to talk about what it affects all of us equally, regardless of where your signs are. How do you work with this big shift of energies? And the first thing I want to say is, do you know the most widely recognized age of legal adulthood in the world? There's some different ones. Different states, even in the US, have different age that they consider you're now a legal adult. And you can sign contracts, you can vote, you can do all these things. The most widely recognized age is 18. In over 150 countries, it's the age 18. So 18 is the amount of time, 18 years, it takes for Rahu and Ketu to move back to where they started. So every 18 years, the individual, you have a Rahu Ketu return or a karmic node return. What does that mean? We'll talk about it in a second, but that being the age of adulthood tells you a lot. It's like an age of maturing, and you've worked through some stuff and you've got to let go of some stuff that's not working anymore and step into a new role, a new identity. But then what are Rahu and Ketu? Why do we call them the karmic nodes? Well, there's a whole deep mythology about them I've talked about in past episodes, especially on the eclipses. Check out my guide to the eclipses in a previous episode where I go in detail about what Rahu and Ketu are. But essentially, Rahu is the thrust for desire, what we want in life, what we want to move towards, our passion, obsessions. And it can become creating karma, and in a harmful way of karma that creates cycles of having to go through processes, pain, suffering, challenges, obstacles, and you create more and more challenges and problems for yourself when Rahu goes to its extreme on the shadow side of it. Everything in astrology can have a positive, negative, or neutral expression. Just like every atom in every cell in your body has a proton, electron, and neutron, there is that potential in everything, positive, negative, or neutral. So Rahu can be positive and we're passionate and we have a mission and we're goal-oriented in a healthy way and moving into unconventional paths and exploring new ideas, and we have a passion for it. On the shadow side, the negative side, it can be obsession, addiction, and just getting overly controlled by our passions and desires. That's Rahu. And the karma that it creates can now create more of those related things. We can have actions that create karma, or we can have actions that are akarmic. In Sanskrit, whenever you put an A in front of a word, it negates that word. So it's like the opposite of karma. Karma is your doing, and then it creates a sort of chain of events that's going to, what goes around comes around, as we say in the US. And then I'm not in the US anymore. I'm just so used to saying that. But then that's Rahu. So it's creating karma in a way, whether we want to make it akarmic as much as we can, but it's almost unavoidable that we're going to create karma in this lifetime just by living and breathing and eating and existing. We're going to create karma, but as much as we can, we want that to be intentional and sattvic, so more pure, less harmful, less destructive, less negative patterns repeating. Now, Ketu is the karma that shows us where our karma has actually been expressed, and we are complete with that. We need to let it go. So it represents detachment, renunciation, and past lives. It also shows hidden strengths and depths to the psyche and the soul and the self, because these are things that have become sort of second nature. Like you've gone through the Rahu cycle with that energy, and now Ketu is like you've been there and you've done that. So that energy is innate, and that's where you get this sort of sixth sense and intuition. And the lesson of Ketu is to let go and to release and detach in a healthy spiritual sense of the word. This is a very spiritual energy. And the positive expression of Ketu is knowing when it's time to end something and let it go. And the negative side of Ketu is just cutting things off abruptly, being sort of spiritual bypassing, and just seeing everything as, it's all love and light, and not really going through the deep, real, authentic process of letting go, of detachment. Sometimes loss, sometimes grief can be with Ketu. So the karma here has been experienced, it's been expressed, and now it's time to let it go. So wherever Rahu moves, it's showing where we now are going to move towards that thing, and we want to do it as best as we can akarmically, not creating more problems for ourselves. And Ketu is showing us where it's time to let something go and move on and go into this more Rahu direction. And again, ideally, akarmically, where we're not creating a bunch of wreckage and crashing out. But that happens sometimes. And we see that in such glorious ways in pop culture many times when people have these big falling outs. And oftentimes those things get a lot of attention. So that is one way Ketu can express. And specifically right now, between May 2025 and November 2026, that Ketu energy, that releasing, that letting go, is showing up in the sign of Leo. So it's even more of all the Ketu things I just talked about. Letting go of your identity is just amplified even more. And ways that you've controlled and tried to say, this is who I am, this is what I'm all about. If it's not really serving you anymore, and it's not really part of your authentic spiritual essence and your expression, it's time to let it go. And it might be a dramatic, intense crashing out kind of thing. Or it could be a Rahu and Aquarius just gently moving towards more spiritual focus, more community focus, what's going to be of greatest good to the society, the collective, unique, innovative causes. That's Rahu and Aquarius at its best. So Ketu and a Leo at its best is just this healthy sense of humility and surrender, and like putting your swords down and saying, okay, I've played this role. It's time to let it go, time to move on. And then Rahu and Aquarius says, well, what are you moving on towards? It's towards the collective good, towards spiritual progress, towards innovation. And we have massive innovation happening right now. And now, how do we really know this? How can we observe this? How can we predict anything with this? To me, one of the best ways to do that is to look back at history as what's happened 18 years ago, 36 years ago, and so on, when Rahu and Ketu were in the same position. Now, to get all of the same big players in the same position actually hasn't happened in about 900 years. It's about a 900-year cycle. So I did a whole episode just on that. So you want to check a couple episodes ago if you want to go into more of the big picture, societal, collective, what is the movement of the unconscious happening here. But Rahu Ketu is an 18-year cycle. So we're just focusing on that today, Rahu and Ketu alone, without the big influence of when were Saturn and Jupiter also in the same places, which is another factor. But Rahu Ketu in Aquarius and Leo happens every 18 years. And the most recent one was October 2006 to April 2008. And you can just think back for yourself. What was going on in your life between October 2006 and April 2008? Maybe you had some weird fashion choices. Maybe you were in a very different relationship, different work situation. Well, collectively, we saw the release of the iPhone, which was a pretty big deal. And we saw the rise of social media, Facebook and Twitter, especially. This movement towards a digital identity. So again, K2 in Leo was like, all right, this old identity that you had of all in person and knowing all your friends and you only hang out in person, that's going to change. You're going to take on a new identity now, a new ego. And that part of that was Rahu and Aquarius. Well, let's move towards innovation and towards something in the collective. And it's an evolution. So social media is part of that evolution we've been going on through history that moves us towards more connection, more societal, big picture stuff. And a lot of big questions about individuality coming up around this time. There was the Occupy Wall Street movement, which was a Rahu and Aquarius kind of thing of like power to the people. Let's have an idealist, utopian kind of vision of what we could do, of taking down these egoic structures and systems. That's very much Rahu and Aquarius, Ketu and Leo. So we saw that around that time. So we'll see similar things now in this time between 2025 and 2026. I think part of that is some sort of AI device. There's a lot of talk about the evolution away from iPhones, like and screens and Androids, and like the way that we've engaged with the internet since this last transit has been largely on screens, like especially the phone. So there's a lot of talk about a movement towards something different, like glasses, implants, all sorts of devices like you just talk to it. It's just like a voice thing. And there was just announced this partnership with OpenAI and Johnny Ive, who was the main designer for Apple for a long time and the iPhone. And they're going to work on some sort of device for using AI that is like beyond the iPhone, beyond the screen, beyond the typical way. So that's in development now, and nobody really knows exactly what that is yet, but that will likely be announced at some point in this range between May 2025, November 2026. Now, in the free download, I go through all the last times this happened over the last 100 years plus. So all the way back to 1913 to 1915. When this was again Rahu and Aquarius, Ketu and Leo. So I'm just going to touch on some of the other past big events that happened. There was the fall of the Berlin Wall. There was the moon landing, Woodstock. There was the rise of TV and mass media. And, back then in 1951 to 1952, it was like everybody who watched TV just watched the same couple channels. So it was this breakthrough of this new way of relating and collecting to the collective unconscious through TV. And everyone was kind of focused on the same direction. And it seems like in this time, things are a lot more spread out in 2025. But I think there is a big movement towards AI, and everything is a lot of ways moving in that direction. And a lot of people working in AI are saying it's about 5 years before basically every industry is somehow affected by it. So the more you can integrate that into the work you do and how you express yourself, I think the better. I've talked about this a lot in recent episodes. That is a movement towards the collective and away from the individual. So a lot of the ways of controlling information or accessing information of Leo are being let go. So we're moving towards, again, what's best for the collective. That's Rahu and Aquarius. So one of the big lessons here is the more that the ego, the sense of self, tries to hold on to the way it was, the more we suffer. And that's going to be true pretty much all the time with the ego. It's like the more you try to control and like, this is the way it has to be in my way and control everything, you're probably going to suffer more. The more tense and tight you hold on to your identity, the more tense and tight you get energetically and internally, mentally, physically. Everything just gets tighter and more tense. So the more you do that, the more you're going to suffer and struggle more likely. So there's a level of letting go, of softening, allowing, opening, receiving, and stepping into a new sense of self, new identity, new role. And in all of the Vedic texts and the source texts of yoga, Ayurveda, Vedic astrology, Jyotish, They talk about basically it all starts with all the suffering in our life starts with avidya or ignorance or forgetting the true self. Because you were always the true self. You were always this spiritual essence having a human experience. And then at certain points along the way, you realize, if I behave this way, I get attention. If I behave this way, I get money. If I behave this way, things go well. And then we start to try to repeat those things over and over again because they worked. And that becomes our identity, becomes our ego, and our way of interacting with this interesting thing called life. Then every 18 years, Ketu comes and messes all that up and says, are you sure? It's maybe time to change that up a bit and time to let go of some of those things that you've held on to. And maybe that used to work and be cute the way you got attention over here and it worked with your parents, but it's time to let that one go. Or maybe, this seemed like the right career path and you invested all this time and money in this career path, but AI is just coming through to mess all that up. In a way, you could see it as messing it up. You could see it as an opportunity, though, of like it's change. And that's the one constant in the universe. And there will always be change. And for all industries, all things, and all ways, it's just all going to keep changing. And we can perceive that as positive, negative, or neutral. And we have a choice in that. And as long as we know we have that choice, then we're in our true selves. If we forget we have the choice and we're reactive, afraid, craving good, avoiding pain, trying to control life and hold on to identities, as long as we are aware we're doing these things, then we have choice, then we can break free of that cycle. If we don't have awareness, then we get kind of stuck in it. We suffer. It's more pain, more struggle. And this is why we have these yogic paths and these ways of working with this stuff. As I'm currently right now updating the yoga teacher training manual for Quiet Mind Yoga that I offer, I did a huge deep dive into just revising all of it and getting a new perspective on the yoga philosophy, and especially Patanjali's model of yoga philosophy, and basically looking at all the Vedic texts and traditions, like the main text. And they all say the same thing, like avidya is the first issue to be aware of. Like you forget who you are. Avidya is ignorance. It's forgetting yourself. And then you get attached to the forms, the nice house, the body, the hair, all the appearance stuff, the external stuff, the material stuff. Start to get attached to that, then you form ego, then you now have a lot of problems and a lot of issues come up from that. And then eventually that reaches a sort of point where you're like, okay, I've had enough. I don't need to control everything. I don't need it to be this way. You loosen the grip a bit. And eventually you might even hit a rock bottom where it's like, I've had enough of this. Like, I just don't want to do this anymore. And you reach a point of looking for something different. And that's a big reason some people come to astrology or yoga is you hit a point where it's like, you've got to change something. It's not working anymore. For me, in my early 20s, I was struggling with depression and really looking for something. I didn't have a father growing up, don't know my paternal father. So just always kind of looking for some direction and guidance. And I was fortunate to find that in different forms, men's groups and weight training and philosophy, spirituality. But for me, yoga was a really big part of it. And then to Vedic astrology is a really big part of it, of having this path of like sense of meaning and purpose and place in the world. So I was really in a point of, it wasn't working anymore. Whatever I was doing was causing more suffering and I was getting stuck in depression. So I needed to change something. So if you reach that point, then you start looking for answers. And, as I'm working through this model of yoga philosophy, yoga is what Patanjali offers in the Yoga Sutra. It's the 8-limb path of yoga. And you might find different paths. Like there's no one right path, I think. You might find jnana yoga, which is the path of wisdom, which is a lot simpler, actually. It's just, hey, you're God, remember? Oh, yeah, I remember. Okay, all is good now. But that can be spiritually bypassing, so you got to be careful with that. But in all these paths, it's like, just remember your true self and just step back for a moment and just see you do have a choice and all the changes going on in your life. So you can reflect for yourself and look back what was going on October 2006 to April 2008. And depending on your age, maybe March 1988 to September 1989. maybe even July 1969 to February 1971. These are the last times this transit was happening. And you can look back at your relationship in that time between self and community, between letting go of familiar, comfortable identities and stepping into more innovation, more change, a new way of being. Anything around lessons from collaboration or leadership or visibility. So you might want to pause and reflect on this, journal about it, take a note, come back to this later. But these are some good questions to consider for all of us. What collective awakening were you part of around this time? Maybe it was the Occupy movement, maybe it was social media, maybe it was some spiritual awakening. For me, that was actually the time when I reached the end of this depression line. It was like, okay, I got to do something different. And I started going to yoga, even though I'd walked by the yoga class and saw only women in there. And I was like, can I even go to this class? It was at the gym. So I was like, all the weightlifters would walk by. So there was a very small part of me, my masculinity, like afraid of what are all the guys going to think walking by, see me in this class. Silly. But I went to the class and was like, oh my God, this is amazing. I need to do this all the time. But that was in that time for me. The last time Ketu was in Leo, this identity shift of, you know what, I'm just going to try it. This thing, I've been kind of called to it. I'm just going to try it. It's outside of my comfort zone. Maybe people are going to judge me and think I'm weird. I don't care. I just feel like I need to try something different. That's Rahu and Aquarius of like something different, something new. And Ketu and Leo, it's like letting go of the attachment to how you look and what people think of you. Now, I've got much more detail on this on the free guide, the dates, the events, the big themes, and explanations of all of the nakshatra transits over the next 18 months. But I'm going to talk about the biggest ones, which are on May 29th, 2025. We just passed it before I recorded this, but we're in this energy now, at least until July, but especially until December. So it's most of the second half of 2025. These are the major energies going on. So the first one is Rahu in Aquarius in the nakshatra of Purva Bhadrapada. And that nakshatra, that small section of the sky, is 27 of these sections of the sky. It represents radical change, mysticism, revolution, being unpredictable. It's a sort of fire and lightning energy. Like the energy of lightning, it's like a fast bolt. Actually, it doesn't make sound. The thunder makes the sound. But the lightning is like that fast movement of energy is a big sort of surprise. Like, wow, this kind of thing with Rahu in Aquarius in Purva Bhadrapada from May to December 2025. So it's an opportunity to think differently, to have new ways of thinking, to question your role in communities, break away from outdated ways of doing things, be open to unexpected connections, to be more authentic, seeking more authenticity rather than approval. Owning your own unique weirdness, your own way of expressing yourself. The future you want will not come from the past. So it's thinking forward in new, innovative, creative ways. But no matter what you do, it's like it kind of doesn't matter what the results are. What matters is you're being authentic, you're expressing yourself. Like with this podcast, maybe nobody listens. Maybe it's the most listened to episode. It doesn't really matter to me. It just matters that I feel like I'm expressing myself. I feel like this is what I'm meant to be doing. And it feels aligned and inspiring. And it's like, I would be doing this for free if nobody listens. And if lots of people listen, that's awesome too. But it's from this place of authenticity and expression. So I encourage, especially with this particular transit, like this is the time to really lean into that part of yourself. At the same time, on the same day, May 29th, begins this movement of Ketu into Leo, as we talked about, but it's specifically in the nakshatra of Uttara Phalguni. And this represents partnership, fairness, commitment. It's related to Dharma in relationships and aligning with what is just and right and in service. So Dharma, not drama. So as Ketu is here now from May 29th to July 6th, 2025, it's about letting go of needing admiration to feel worthy. It's not getting your self-worth through validation from others. Your relationships in your life are mirroring your control or your avoidance. They are showing you how you show up in relationship. So if you're looking at your partner or relationships close to you and saying, you are X, Y, and Z, you're being so blah, 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 that's a good opportunity to write that sentence down and churn it around. If you're familiar with Byron Katie's The Work, it's a good process for this. There's a free guide you can find for that. But basically, that's the short version of it. It's just look at your judgments, and especially if somebody really gets a reaction out of you. And if they don't, even if it's a positive reaction, oh, they're so loving and affectionate, if that's genuinely true, now that I tell you this, don't try to cheat. But if you look at them and you feel a certain way, write it down and look at yourself. Like, that's probably telling you something about how you feel about yourself. And your relationships are a reflection of that. So they're a sacred mirror. It's an opportunity from May 29th to July 6th to get honest about your desire for approval. How much of what you're doing is for attention or approval? Is it really your authentic expression? It's an opportunity to recalibrate towards what is really soul aligned, what is really you, and detach from glamour and focusing on things that are just superficial, so that you can more fully focus on what is true, what is really aligned. It's an opportunity to know that real love doesn't ask you to perform or to put on a role or identity or persona. Real love comes from the heart, which is just really being yourself. So you can really strip away performative patterns and roles and the whole song and dance you think you need to do to get attention or to get money or to get validation or to get love. This is just all about shedding those layers. Now, that energy's been in effect to some degree since December 2024 until July 6, 2025. Everything I just said about Ketu and Leo and Uttara Falguni, because Ketu was in Uttara Falguni in Virgo. To keep it short, it's nakshatras, some of them cross over into two signs. So Uttara Falguni energy has been present since December until May. So all those things I just talked about of kind of letting go of the false roles or persona we're playing for relationships, so we can get to what's really true, our true essence, and stop over giving or performing or trying to do these things to get love. Instead, just being love, just receiving love, just giving love from an authentic place has been a big theme from December till all the way till July 6th, 2025. And while I'm talking about the past, I'll just briefly touch on also with Rahu, that was in Purva Bhadrapada for a while too. So I talked about from May 29th to December 1st, all that stuff with Rahu and Aquarius, questioning your role in communities, getting out of old, outdated things, owning your weirdness. There's been some level of that since February 25th, 2025, because Rahu was in Purva Bhadrapada in Pisces, which is an amazing time. That time from February to late May was about awakening mystical insights, a lot of synchronicities you might have noticed in your life leading you in the right direction, about challenging any beliefs that are not really true and authentic. A lot of spiritual growth through chaos and change was happening collectively and possibly personally as well. It was a very rebellious energy that was going on February to May of this year that pushed you out of your comfort zones. And it's an opportunity to let go of needing to explain yourself. That opportunity is past, though, so that's done. That will come back in 18 years, so next time. But that one is past, and there's still some degree of all that, though, until December 1st, 2025. But it's now Purva Bhadrapada in Aquarius, so more of this collective focus. Now, again, if you want all of the details on all of this stuff I'm talking about today, it's in the free guide, quietmindastrology.com/karma2025. The link is in the show notes, and you can get that. But I will touch on a little bit more because I know most people will listen to this around the time it comes out. So I want to go to what's coming up just shortly after this, July 6th, 2025, when Ketu moves out of Uttara Falguni into Purva Falguni. So what is Purva Falguni about? It's creativity, sensuality, enjoyment. It seeks pleasure beauty and artistic expression, and it can be indulgent. So people who have this nakshatra prominent in their charts tend to be pretty powerful leaders. They do well in being in some role of leadership or management, tend to be quite successful in whatever they do, and have a good sense of enjoying the pleasures of life. They are often quite hardworking as well, quite creative, quite sensual. So you add K2 to that. And K2 again shows us, okay, it's time to let go in that area and not get attached to those things. So from July 6th, 2025, all the way until April 20th, 2026, we have K2 in Purva Falguni in Leo. This is quite a big shift, quite a big time in transit. And you might feel the energy shift more around July. You might just be going through a long lesson between July and April with this. You might feel it more at the end. So I find quite mixed results with this, trying to predict when you will feel it. But I do think people who are more spiritually aligned and like there's not a whole lot of resistance or misaligned or adharmic things in your life, the more you are in your dharma, in your purpose, the more these things will come even before the dates I'm saying and at the beginning of the transit, because the energy shift is here. You're not blocking it. You're going with it. You're allowing it. And yeah, it doesn't mean it's easy, but still, this time, July 6th begins this time to let go of fantasies and illusions you have, especially around romance, especially around power and control, letting go of fantasies and grounding yourself into more reality. So it's letting go of overinflated ego or some sort of way of grandiosity that you might experience. It's an opportunity to bring more creativity from your depth and your essence. And that's a big part of this whole cycle, to move from your ego to your essence, to your true self, especially between July and April. It's a time for really owning your sensuality and sexuality and seeing the sacredness of that and taking away the performative elements of it. There's so much performance around beauty and sexuality and sensuality that's sort of baked into Western culture of how you're supposed to look and dress and act sexually and sensually. There's an opportunity to really drop those layers and just really be authentic and true to yourself. Like what actually lights you up, what actually turns you on or gives you pleasure or enjoyment in life, rather than what you think it should be or maybe what you think your partner wants or performing in some way. As an opportunity, again, this is coming July 6th. So if you're listening to this before then, it's coming up. So July 6th to April 20th. Detach from being the source of other people's joy. So if you have any sort of people-pleasing tendencies, hello, raising my hand, any sort of ways of not honoring your true self, fawning over others, we all have elements of these, some more or less. It's an opportunity to just observe that and put it down. If it's time to just let that go, just really be yourself and not try to make someone else feel something or be something or bend over backwards to appeal to somebody, unless that is your authentic sexual, sensual desire. And if you're into that, great. But doing it in a way that's intentional rather than obligatory, or you feel like you have to do this. And you can really reconnect with joy that's not externally driven. So a joy that's coming from within, like your essence. If there's any sort of overindulgence or escapism going on in your life, it's an opportunity to step back from that and get real with yourself. And I think it's Gabor Mate has this article about this, like the cure for addiction is connection, right? It's not some sort of drug or some sort of program, it's just connection. And this is a really strong example of it. This transit is about that kind of thing. So like if there's some part of your life you're hiding from others, you feel embarrassed, ashamed about, if you can bring light to that and perspective and a witness to that, a community, a support group, some sort of light to the darkness of that thing, some sort of connection where you feel isolated and maybe ashamed or compulsory in some way, just to talk about it can be very healing around this time. So if there is some sort of addiction in your life, there's an opportunity to find more connection and shift that energy. If it's more subtle, if it's just like patterns of snacking or scrolling that are just, I don't like that you waste a couple hours, Still, it's an opportunity to just be more aware of this July 6th to April 20th and change that pattern. And really good time for expressing your love and your desire, a selfless sort of love, a heart centered love, to be more healing and connecting, to receive healing, to receive love and care, to be aware of reactivity and ego control. Ego is form. It's like, I am this person. I have this much money. I have this identity. And that is the way it is. And anything that threatens it is a problem and needs to be attacked. That's how the ego sees reality. And that's not your true essence. Your essence was just playing, playing, playing. And then at some point, you took on this ego because it worked for you, and it became more and more hardened over time. So it's an opportunity. It's like you can play those roles, you can be in that role. Like if you're a mother, then be the best mother you can be. If you're a father, be the best father you can be. Play the role well, but know that it's a role and it will change, and you will need to put it down at some point, or in some points, not necessarily completely, but the way it expresses now will probably change. It will definitely change. And this is an opportunity to see that and work with that rather than against it. All right, so I'll talk about one more here on the episode. But again, if you want the rest, there's 11 of these important dates. They're all in the free guide. And if you want to pay something for it, you can, but it's pay what you want. December 1st, 2025. December 1st, 2025, Rahu moves into Satabhisha in Aquarius. So still Aquarius all the way till November 2026. But right now, it's December 1st, 2025 through July 1st, 2026 is this part in Satabhisha. So I just started to talk about healing. That time, December 1st to July 1st, is very good for healing, particularly any sort of solitude, like going into meditation, retreats. I would count like getting a massage or something that's like one-on-one therapy, also in this realm of healing in more solitude kind of setting, because Aquarius is a collective energy. So you might think collective healing. That can be good too. But especially this part, December 1st to July 1st, more internal self-healing, very favorable. As an opportunity to release any dependence on groups, group validation. If you are part of a group and you have a thought that is outside of that group, and that now makes you excluded from that group, then you're actually part of a cult and you're not allowed to have independent thought. Rahu in Aquarius is a movement towards community, but also independent thought. So like if you're part of a community in some sort and you have a thought or a way of being or thinking that is outside of that box, then a healthy community will understand you and still accept you and accept and honor your difference and respect your difference. So I just encourage any group you are part of that your unique expression is welcome. December 1st to July 1st, and you might need to change. You might need to leave groups that are no longer really serving you, that are not honoring your unique expression. It's a healthy expression of a community that they can tolerate different points of opinion and views. If they cannot, then it's more of a cult than a culture. Again, December 1st to July 1st, tech, astrology, innovation, these tools of understanding ourselves and working with reality are very, very useful at this time. It's a very good time to step more in towards working with innovations in your life. Like if there's like robo taxis on the road at this time, maybe you start using them to commute. Or maybe you start using AI more in your personal life. So many amazing uses of these things, and there's just more and more coming. So around this time, December to July, it'll become more and more embedded in culture, just like previous transits of this. We got Facebook and Twitter, not embedded in culture so much yet at the time of Rahu and Ketu in this placement in like 2008, 2009. And the iPhone, not so much yet embedded in culture, but it was the starting point of that. And now, 18 years later, it's embedded in culture and it's time for disruption. So that's just the nature of Rahu Ketu. Okay, we've been there, we've done that with Facebook. What else we got? Universe, let's try some other stuff. We got AI now. We got these dystopian metaverses. I hope that is not where we go, but we've got things like that. We've got options. Also, speaking hard truths is very good during December 1st to July 1st. So, like, if you've been in a long marriage and you bottled a bunch of stuff up and you haven't talked about it, it's going to come out one way or another, December 1st to July 1st. So hopefully do it intentionally, proactively, working with it rather than working against it. Ride the wave, don't have the wave ride you, right? So this is an opportunity to speak the truth in your work, in your position, whatever role you play, to be authentic, to be true, express yourself. Lean into your edges. You want to grow, you want to find new parts of yourself. Go to those places that are uncomfortable. Lean into your edges, especially December 1st to July 1st. Try some new things. Question the masks you wear. We've talked about this a lot today, but just being aware of, when you're with these friends, you talk this way. And when you're with those friends, you talk that way. And when you're with this group, you put on this identity. When you're with that group, you put on this identity. Sometimes that's healthy and helpful. Sometimes it becomes sort of a burden and sort of a weight that we carry that's not being your true self, not really expressing yourself. With care, with love, and there's no need to be understood to be impactful here. So with all that I'm saying, like express yourself, be authentic, lean into your edges, you don't have to make somebody understand you. And I like the idea of seek to understand rather than to be understood. Because I think you're going to bridge more gaps that way. You're going to create more connection if you approach relationships and differences with curiosity and try to understand them, but still be true to yourself. Hold your ground. Don't be a pushover. Don't be inauthentic, but also be curious, be open. Aquarius is a communal, harmonious, harmony seeking kind of energy. So see this as an opportunity to create more understanding and connection, but also be yourself. Don't be a pushover. Don't be inauthentic. Don't be a people pleaser like I have been in the past. But if you want, sometimes we need to learn those lessons and just make those mistakes. That's part of this karma of December 1st to July 1st. So as I've talked about earlier, Rahu could be positive, negative, or neutral. So with all this stuff going on, Rahu could become obsessed with change and innovation and just being myself and being authentic and radical honesty. I don't care what anyone thinks. That's too far, too much Rahu. Now you're creating a lot of karma. It's going to come back around. And like if you're in a relationship and it's going this way, you're probably going to end up in another relationship and it's all reversed. And you got to experience the implications of what you created. Try it out. See for yourself and test it yourself. Or you do something that's more akarmic. Okay, Rahu's in Aquarius. Lean into my edges a little bit. Be a little more authentic. Take off some of the masks. Keep the ones that are useful, but just put on the ones that are not authentic. Be a little more authentic. Be a little more in the flow of these changes of society, these new devices, new technology, new ways of understanding things. And all of it stems from knowing yourself, knowing your own birth chart. So if you don't have your free birth chart, go to quietmindastrology.com and get your free birth chart. If you want to know how all this affects you on a very personal level, get the free guide. I go into each sign, rising and moon sign. So you want to read the ones for your rising and moon sign and have this as a reference over this 18 months. You'll want to come back to it, especially towards the end, and see what changed, how it played out for you. I find these guides super useful. I've used the same sort of things. I made them for myself for many years and for past clients. So I think you'll get a lot out of this. I put a lot of heart into it. I really love it. I'm very happy with it. But the truth is, I really just want you to have this great resource. So if you want it, it's there. If you want to pay, great. If you don't, that's okay too. So it's there for you. And this is a really powerful time. It's really exciting. I like innovation. I like change. I like new identities and trying new things. So there's an opportunity, a big opportunity to go into that kind of stuff. And I hope you really enjoy it and get a lot out of it. And yeah, if you want to go into more personalized, really one-on-one, look at this with your birth chart holistically and all the detail, go to quietmindastrology.com/reading. You can book a one-on-one with me. We'll go deep into this and whatever else you want to talk about. And I will be offering the Vedic astrology mentorship in August 2025 is the next class starting. It's a 6-month immersion into reading your chart, making predictions accurately, and giving great readings for yourself and others. I love it. It's so fun. It's my favorite thing that I do with Vedic astrology. So that will be coming in August. Stay tuned for that. But get the free guide. It's there. Check it out, download it, save it, print it out if you want, and see how it plays out for you. Do the journaling stuff too. Reflect on it and see how it plays out. I would love to hear. Leave a comment on Spotify. Send me a DM on Instagram at Quiet Mind Astrology. And I look forward to sharing more with you next time on the Quiet Mind Astrology podcast.